Om Shanti, good morning. Today is 1st of December, and in the world, the elements are getting very angry, and Baba's taking up the subject of anger. There's a lot of extreme weather is becoming very normal. Big storms around, very big storms. So whatever is going on the level of the elements, on the level of the souls, and then the attacks in the Brahmins, because Maya has to do this, and you have to resist it, and that's that. What can anybody do? You can say it's predestined, but you need power. So 1st of December, and the essence, sweet children, anger is a very big thorn. Many receive sorrow through it. Sorrow, you can say harm. And you must therefore remove that thorn and become a true flower. And the question is, what reassurance does the Father give the children who are becoming flowers from thorns? And the answer is, children, the obstacles that Maya still causes you while you are becoming flowers from thorns will one day come to an end. That means you will die. And all of you will go to heaven. The Iron Age thorns will end. So the Father has put you in the Confluence Age pot, so you are being planted and cared for and grown up in his Confluence Age pot. Although Maya makes you wilt, the seed of knowledge is imperishable. It's very important to make a clear distinction between your mind and your intellect. A lot of people think that, well, you think with your mind. Actually, you think with your intellect, and you get waste thoughts in your mind. And if you entertain waste thoughts in your mind, that's because you're not thinking straight, and you're not distinguishing between the mind and the intellect. So think about that. The knowledge goes in your intellect, and with the knowledge, you can control the funny thoughts that appear in your mind that you take seriously, but you should not take seriously, like doubt, for example. So the seed of knowledge can never be destroyed. And the song is, neither will he be separated from us, nor will there be sorrow. Sorrow is an emotion, and dukh, sukh and dukh. Dukh is prosperity, sukh is prosperity, and dukh is that you are getting harmed. So how you feel about it is called sorrow, and what you do about it is up to you. So it's important to make a distinction between what's happening and how you feel about it, because those two are different. Om Shanti. Baba explains the deep secrets of knowledge to you, sweetest beloved, long lost and now found, extremely cherished spiritual children through the body of Brahma. So first of all, you children heard the song. And in that song, it is said, Baba, we will sacrifice ourselves to you. That means we will dedicate ourselves to you. And we will do this regardless of the assaults that we have to tolerate. So these days, if a woman gets assaulted in the family, you can report it to the police, who may or may not take care of the situation. A lot of the times they don't. But in this society where Baba was talking, there's no protection for women who get assaulted by their husbands or in-laws. And so it's a very difficult situation. And Baba had a great deal of compassion for these women. So why are they assaulted? And it is because they do not allow their husbands or anybody else to violate them. They violate them anyway. So you children know that previously you didn't know about souls and you didn't know about the Supreme Soul. You didn't know yourselves and you didn't know the Father. So that means you had an intellect of an animal, because an animal cannot grasp spiritual information. In worldly terms, you knew yourselves physically and you knew your physical fathers. And people of this time, they do not know themselves and they do not know the Father, the Paralokic Father at all. The religious authorities say that God has no name, form, place, or time. And that means, that implies that the same thing goes for souls. So they do not know about souls at all. They say that every soul is part of the Supreme Soul, but you now know every soul is individual and remains individual forever. They say, for the sake of it, that there is the soul and the being. This is fully incorrect translation. Sorry about that. But the being is the soul, and the Hindi is Jeev and Atma. So Jeev is the body. So if you say the body is the being, you will get in confusion. So there is the soul and the body. So the soul is imperishable and the body is perishable. What is a soul? What is the form and color of a soul? They know that the name of the soul is soul, but no one can explain about the soul, what the soul is like, what the soul does, what role the soul plays, for how long the soul plays a part. No one can give any knowledge about souls. You now know that a soul is a tiny star, and the imperishable part of 84 births, or up to 84 births, is recorded in a soul. So the soul of Shankaracharya is also playing his own part. No one even knows how a soul becomes Sato Pradhan. So Shankaracharya is the one responsible for codifying this concept of omnipresence of God and soul being part of God. That all comes from there. This is called Vedic knowledge. So no one knows how a soul becomes Sato Pradhan, or how the soul goes through the stages of Sato, Rajo, and Tamo. They just say that a strange star sparkles in the center of the forehead, or shines in the center of the forehead, and they don't know anything else. If you don't know about the soul, it implies that you also don't know about God. At the present time, the world is like a forest of thorns, and all people are acting like thorns. They do not know the Creator, the Supreme Father, the Supreme Soul, and they do not know the beginning, the middle, or the end of creation. Creation means the history of humanity. You children know about souls and about the Supreme Soul, but that too is number wise according to the efforts you make, effort to churn, effort to practice. Many of you children do not know this accurately. And because of being body conscious, you're not able to imbibe fully. So you know the information, but you cannot act on the implications. So that is called you can't imbibe. It is number wise. Some of you ask, Baba, why is it like this? Good question. Baba says, children, a kingdom is being established. So who understands clearly will go higher in the kingdom. Who doesn't understand will go lower in the kingdom, because your understanding determines your interpretation, your karma. So in a kingdom, all types are definitely needed. You know, there is the expression, it takes all sorts to make a world. Those who have a stone intellects would get the lowest status of all. If you know something yourself, then you would explain it to others. You say that you will begin to explain as you make further progress, but there have to be ones like that, because those are the ones who receive the low status, and very few get a high status. Very many get a low status. There is so much difference between a king and a subject. In the world today, both the rulers and the subjects experience sorrow, hardship, harm, difficulties, loss. In the Golden Age, neither the kings nor the subjects experience any sorrow, any hardship, but there is a difference in their status. Because of not imbibing fully, you're not able to explain to anyone. Then one thorn or another will continue to prick you. Sometimes the thorn of greed, sometimes the thorn of attachment. The evil spirits will continue to interfere with you. Evil spirits just means the emotions that drive people to act on the vices. So this definitely has to happen. You are Prajapita, Brahma Kumars and Kumaris. Who is the father of Prajapita? Shiv Baba. And Shiv Baba does not have a father. This Brahma, Vishnu, and Shankar are also the creation of Shiva. Everyone is a soul, and the Supreme Father, the Supreme Soul, is only one. You cannot receive the inheritance of liberation or liberation in life from Brahma, Vishnu, or Shankar, or from Lakshmi or Narayan, or from any human being, including the founders of religions. So liberation, go back to the soul world, salvation or liberation in life, the golden age. People neither know about souls nor about the Supreme Soul accurately. Only the Supreme Father, the Supreme Soul, can enable you to have realization of souls. So this word realization means you get it, you understand it. It doesn't mean you feel it. Because you can feel real things and unreal things. The unreal things feel probably more real than the real things, but realization refers to understanding, comprehension, It takes place in the intellect, not in the mind. Salvation, sadgati, is achieved through knowledge. And only the one Father gives knowledge. Some children do a lot of physical service for the yagya service, and you receive marks in that subject too. Many different kinds of service. The Father is now telling you, children, the story of immortality and the story of the third eye. In fact, these are not stories. This is spiritual knowledge. So they're not stories, they're information, and you have to process the information. You have to know the Father and know yourself. Those people, the different gurus and so on, they say that just as you get a bubble in water, so the bubble bubbles up and then it pops and goes back into the water. So in the same way, the soul is like a bubble that pops out of the world of light, the element of Brahm, the sixth element of light, and then you perform your role and then you pop back into the element of light, or you become the element of light. So these Vedantic people, they arrive at information on the basis of observation. Even when they're in spiritual practice, they get experiences, and those are impressions on the mind, and they do not come from information. This is revealed knowledge from God, so it's different from that. They do not have, there is no other knowledge of the creator or the creation. They do not know any of this. Only the Father comes and explains knowledge. His name is Shiva. Some call him Rudra. Some call him the remover of sins. They have given him many names, and they have increased all the equipment for worship accordingly. Whatever are the acts that he does, they give him names that refer to the acts he carries out, and they build temples accordingly. The Father says, this is now the world of thorns, the ocean of poison. I was discussing with my sister here, and this word vishay is a Sanskrit word, and it doesn't actually mean poison, it means distractions. So vish is poison, but vishay is distraction. And if you think about it, it really is the world of a lot of things that distract you, and you're pulled by your senses, and you get caught up in sense impressions. And then you lose contact with your soul, lose contact with Baba. So you can consider this world as the ocean of distractions also. When people come to the exhibition and they understand something, they are asked to write that God is not omnipresent. The Father comes and he makes Bharat into heaven. And that means that the whole world becomes heaven, because the whole world means the human world, the social world. So the part of India which is populated, that becomes the world of heaven. The rest of the world becomes nice, but deities don't live there. This doesn't enter anyone's intellect. All the scriptures apply to devotion, path of search, bhakti. Each one has knowledge about his own work. A carpenter knows about carpentry. A doctor has knowledge about medicine. And this is spiritual knowledge, which is only given by the Supreme Soul when he comes. People do not know who God is. In the Gita, the name of Krishna is used. And this is the main issue. They have falsified the mother and the father. That means the Gita. So all scriptures of all religions are derived from the Gita. And the Gita is what is remembered from what Baba spoke in the confluence age, when it becomes the confluence of the silver and copper age. So they remember quite well. And then the Vedanta comes along, and the Gita gets changed at that time, about 1,000 years ago, through the religion called the sannyas religion. And then Hinduism is a mixture of these two quite different religions, you can say. So as a result of that, all the other scriptures became false. Just as there are mines of artificial stones, so here these are like artificial gems. Those with divine intellects live in the golden age in the land of divinity. This is the word paras. So divine intellect doesn't mean a divine intellect. Paras means you can see clearly, you can comprehend, your intellect is functional. And so Paras, the golden age, is a land of people who can think clearly. But this is hell. And they call out, "O purifier, come." So that implies that they must definitely be impure. So if they're impure, that means their intellect is also impure, which means you don't think logically. Both heaven and hell exist in Bharat. When a person dies, they say that he has gone to heaven, because it doesn't enter into their intellects that the golden age is heaven, and God establishes heaven. He does not establish hell. No one knows when the kingdom of Ravan begins. Although they do study many scriptures and they practice celibacy, they're still born through vice. This is the sannyasis. So the sages and the sannyasis also do spiritual practice. And they also ask the Father for liberation because they do not want to stay in this unclean world. So they're all trying to go to nirvana. And the Father says, first of all, know yourselves, souls, and how you go around the cycle of birth and death, and how alloy gets mixed into the real gold, and how you play your parts of 84 births. You have the maximum number of roles, maximum parts, maximum births. Those who were deities take the full 84 births. So where did Lakshmi and Narayan go after they ruled the kingdom? They must have left the body. Where did they go? They must have taken rebirth. Where are they now? Nobody knows this. Some people believe that at the present time, Christ is in the form of a beggar. And you know very well that Lakshmi and Narayan, who were the masters of heaven, have to take rebirth. They have to complete their 84 births. Not all souls take 84 births. You should imbibe this knowledge in your intellects. That means process the ideas, get very clear about it. Unless you stay in yoga, you cannot change from thorns into flowers. What happens when you stay in yoga? How do you change from thorns to flowers? We'll talk about that afterwards. By having yoga, your sins will be absolved. That means actually neutralized. And you will become sato pradhan flowers. Flowers means fragrant. That means virtuous. So while you are here, there will definitely be some trace of thorns, of some vices. Once you have become flowers completely, you will not be able to stay here. That means you will die. The golden age is called the Garden of Flowers, but now you are in the forest of thorns, and that is the kingdom of Ravan. Everyone here is a thorn. And those who make many thorns into flowers are said to be real fragrant flowers. And there is a flower called the king of flowers, a white flower. And when you keep this flower on a table, it continues to bloom and its fragrance continues to increase. Like a gardenia or something. No one is a flower like that. Since there is a king flower, there should be a queen flower. So there's a flower called Rat Kirani. There's a lot of them in Mount Abu, queen of the night. It's just a little green flower that's hardly noticeable, but it smells really good, especially at night. Roses, jasmine, etc., very good flowers. And there are flower shows where people bring very good flowers. And those who bring the good flowers are given a prize. You are also creating a garden of flowers. People offer flowers to Shiva, which includes Ratanjot, which is a very fragrant flower, and also the Ak flower. And the Ak flower is a bit like a dandelion. It has white liquid that comes out when you pick it, and that goes black, and it goes all over your hands and make them black as well. So Baba has explained that he plays the part of making you children into flowers. Baba says, I know who is a rose, who is a jasmine, who is a ratanjot, and who is an Ak flower. The worst of all are the Ak flowers. They are flowers, but they behave like thorns. Some are very sharp thorns. Anger also is a thorn that causes sorrow and harm for many people. You children have now stepped aside from the world of thorns. You are at the confluence age, and you are changing from thorns into flowers. Just as a gardener removes thorns from the stems of flowers and puts them in a separate pot, so too Baba has separated you. You are at the confluence age, and you are continuing to be repaired. So the soul got bent out of shape by life. Now you're getting repaired. You are antiques, need to be fixed. In spite of that, Maya makes you into thorns. However, once you belong to me, these obstacles of Maya will finish one day. And then the flowers that are planted in this pot will all go to heaven. All the Iron Age thorns will be burnt away. There are so few of you flowers. You have been placed in the confluence-aged pot. The seed has been sown, the seed of knowledge. Once you have the knowledge, it stays with you forever. But when the storms of Maya come, it makes you wilt. Nevertheless, once the seed of imperishable knowledge has been sown, it can never be destroyed. Once you know you're a soul, you can't unknow it, right? How can you unknow it and say, oh, sorry, I'm a body after all? I don't think so. The Father sits here and says to you children must become fearless. Baba tells you to write. We come every 5,000 years at the confluence age to show you this exhibition. Also write that this war takes place every 5,000 years in order to make the old world new and to change the residents of hell into residents of heaven. So you know now there's a big group of people who are against extinction, right? In the climate change people. And they believe that there has been extinction 6 times. There's evidence of it. And so it's not particularly effective because extinction should be only 1 time. But if you've been extinguished 6 times, then a 7th or an 8th or a 9th doesn't make that much difference, right? So we don't have to worry about this. But people really do. Baba gives you many directions. He shows you very simple methods. Remember the Father and claim the sovereignty of heaven. Simple method. It's not easy, but it is simple. People continue to take a dip in the waters of the Ganges. And Baba says, well, they should go and take a dip in the ocean because all the rivers emerge from the ocean. The ocean is the father of rivers. So people should go and bathe in the ocean. However, it is salty water. And this is why people go and bathe in the rivers of sweet water. You are now the children of the ocean of knowledge. So salty water is symbolic for the Sakar Murli, because it's the ocean of knowledge and he says things that people don't like, so it's salty. And when you go and talk to a river of knowledge, that's a Brahma Kumari who talks or a Brahma Kumar who talks, they don't say things that would upset you, so they're sweet rivers. The ocean of knowledge. So you are now the children of the ocean of knowledge. And the ocean of knowledge, the purifier, is the Father, and you are his children. It is understood of those who do a lot of service that they are very good flowers. And good flowers are repeatedly invited to the exhibitions because it is understood that such and such is cleverer than they are. Regard has to be given to those who are clever, those who can explain the knowledge well. Baba keeps explaining, do not become angry. Explain with love. When someone becomes angry, Baba understands that he's filled with a powerful evil spirit, this emotion of anger. Some do not hesitate to become angry with their parents, and they become even more degraded. Would the Lord of the poor become angry with the poor? Baba, the Lord of the poor, has come to make the poor wealthy. And those who are multimillionaires here will become maids and servants in their next birth. The poor who study well will go and become kings and queens. Some children who go to the centers do not give anything for godly service. They do not know that by sowing a few seeds, that means by investing in Baba's work, the future can become so elevated. And there is the example of Sudama. He gave to God, and he believed he would receive the fruit of it in his next birth. But actually, he received it right away. Baba writes, children, in return for one brick of yours, there was a elderly woman who was Baba's child, and she sent like 2 annas, very, very small amount of money, because Baba was building, at that time, he was building the history hall in Madhuban. And so she said, one brick in my name for the history hall for this money. And so this is a reference to that story of this lady. So in return for one brick, you will receive palaces. You give shells here, Kori shells, and they turn into diamonds over there. So this is why there is the praise of a handful of rice. So you bring a handful of rice to Baba's house and you get a big palace in exchange. When people go to a Sikh temple, they definitely put something there. So you go to the Gurudwara and there's a pretty large box with a long slit and you pop your money in there. So they put money there. But here, the Father himself is the bestower. Whatever you give is small, small, and whatever he gives you is gigantic. So Baba's sign off. To the sweetest beloved, long lost and now found children, love, remembrance, and good morning from the mother, father, Bap Dada, and the spiritual father says namaste to the spiritual children, and the spiritual children say namaste to the spiritual father. So the essence for Dharna, become fearless and do the service of changing thorns into flowers. Why fearless? Because people won't like what you tell them. Truth is a funny thing. People want it, and if you give it to them, then they don't like it. It's a strange thing. Continue to sow the imperishable seeds of knowledge in everyone. Once you understand, it stays. Secondly, the thorn of anger is very big. Renounce it and become very loving. Do service with love and have regard for serviceable ones. And the blessing, may you be an embodiment of virtues who has enthusiasm and be eager to see everyone's virtues and make them content. Content means fulfilled. In order to have zeal and enthusiasm, continuous zeal and enthusiasm, be eager to make everyone who comes in contact with you content. Actually, you can't satisfy people very easily, right? They always find some reason not to be satisfied. So don't think that you have to just satisfy people, and if they don't get satisfied, it means you haven't done your job. No. Do what they have a right to. Give them what they have a right to. And if they're satisfied or not satisfied, but you have still done your work, right? Whoever you see, they all have virtues. Take those virtues from them all the time. Taking the power from people's virtues will keep you always enthusiastic. When you look at the different situations and hear about them, this or that is not okay, then you will lose your enthusiasm. But if you're keen to see virtues, then you will stay enthusiastic and you will stay stable. By seeing everyone's virtues, you will become an embodiment of virtues. Doesn't mean become naive. So you have to understand what he means by this. The slogan is, if the foundation of an unlimited attitude means perspective of disinterest is strong, then it is easy to be bodiless in a second. It's quite a very deep slogan. What does it mean? Vairagya. When you go to a funeral, there is a feeling that comes, especially when you see pieces of a body falling off a funeral pyre. It's quite, it makes you realize that that's not the person. It's just bones, charred flesh. But the person is totally invisible, and the person was gone quite some time before you burn the body. If you burn somebody who's alive, that's another story. Because the person is there and there will be problems because they will react, right? Who likes to be burned? But when you burn a dead body, it makes you really feel that that's not real. But when you see living bodies, you see, this is my mother, my child, my father, my this, my that, my house, my car, you know. You consider them to be there all the time. But the thing is, they're all perishable. And when you are considering perishable things to be always there, even though you know that they're imperishable, then it causes you to do the wrong karma. And so your relationship with perishable things has to be realistic. But when you are attached to something perishable, at the time when you lose it, or it gets broken or stolen or whatever, then you get an emotion, this feeling of loss, especially when it comes to people, because mostly people are attached to people. And you're also attached to circumstances going your way. And so when things don't go your way, and when things don't happen the way that you want them to happen or need them to happen, then you experience this feeling of frustration or loss or anger. And so you get upset. So what he's saying about bodiless refers to a stage where you are not body conscious. Body conscious means arrogant. Arrogant means reactive. And so when you are reactive to situations, then that's called body conscious. But if you have this vairagya around everything, that you know, look, it's going. Everyone is, like it says in the Gita. You've read the Gita? Yeah. So Krishna tells Arjuna, kill that man. And Arjuna says, I'm not going to do that. That's not right. And God says, you know what? I'm God. So I'm the one who knows what's right and not right. And I'm giving you an order. Kill that man. He says, no, I'm not going to. That's not right. He says, okay, I'll tell you what. Understand that he's already dead and go through the motions of killing him. And he got it eventually. Took a long time, but he got it. Okay, yeah. And obviously, God is not going to tell people to kill another person, right? But in many of the religions, there are stories where God tests people by telling them to kill those who they love. For example, in the Old Testament of the Bible, there's this story of, who is it? Abraham. He has to kill his son. And he makes ready to kill his son on the altar and sacrifice him to God. And in those days, it was very much the system to sacrifice, to make human sacrifices. And so they did. And they believed that they have to satisfy the gods by making human sacrifices. And so this was in that context. And then in the last moment before he put the knife to the child, this angel came along and stopped him, saying, no, I just needed to know how much you will obey me. So this idea of killing under the instructions of God is quite prevalent in many different religions. And it comes here in the Gita also. But it's not about taking someone's life. It's about destroying attachment. Because when you have a child, you're attached to that child. And if you are attached to someone, according to different circumstances, instead of doing the right thing, you will do the wrong thing because of attachment. And that will be negative karma. So if you are with God, you have to do positive karma. And if you are with God and you have attachment, then you will be divided. Part of you will be for God and part of you will be for attachment. And then you're split. And this is a test to see, do you function on the basis of attachment, or do you function on the basis of the instructions of God? And, you know, it takes a very unusual person to be free from attachment. It's very unusual. But yet, if you want to really study and practice Shrimat, the things that God says, then there will be tests. Because, you see, sooner or later, everyone will die. Sooner or later, right? You don't know when. It could be today, tomorrow, next week, next year, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. So in spiritual practice, one of the things to do, which is quite helpful to manage your attachments, is to interact with everyone and everything in such a way that if you have to lose it right away, you can. But also you will take care of it, even if it has to be with you for the next 30, 40, 50 years. So this equilibrium is the sign of a person who's detached. And you have stories about this in India. In particular, there are stories about King Janak. Have you heard about King Janak? King Janak? He's the father of Sita. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of stories about him because he was called a Raj rishi. So a Raj rishi is somebody who's a king and also a rishi. So a rishi is a holy man. And he was famous for being detached. But no one could believe that he was detached as well as a king, because the kings are not normally holy men. And they're normally warriors and they need lots of stuff and servants and armies and money and all the things. But King Janak was a Raj rishi. And very often he says to us, you are studying Raj Yoga and you are studying to become kings. And you are also Raj rishis. You have to become kings, but also renunciates. You renounce this satisfying yourself by sense pleasures. And if you're attached to someone, what does it mean? It means that you're taking energy from that person, right? And actually, that's not right, because you're supposed to take energy from God. But if you don't have contact with God, then you will take energy from the people that you love, right? And have you experienced sometimes people want more love from you than you can actually give? So this is the sign that they're unclear about what this thing called love is. So usually taking energy from someone and being tight with someone, each one is taking energy from the other. What happens is both get depleted. And then the relationship becomes a relationship of sorrow, because you're creating negative karma by taking energy from each other and calling it love. It's not actually love. It's called detachment. And it's very difficult for people to understand this difference between love and attachment. So Baba says that love is an energy, no doubt, that you pass on to other people who you love. But the origin of it has to be that you take energy from God. Because if you don't take energy from God, you will not have enough energy to manage your life, your relationships, all these things. And when you don't have energy from God, you try to find substitutes. And so some people, they take energy from their relatives. Some people, they take energy from, like they get into a position of power over lots of people and they take energy from those people. And then you see they become greedy. They want more and more and more. But also they become very empty. So then they become very dark. And then they do quite wrong actions. And so this is the state of the world. All this is going on, and people don't understand how it is like this, why it is like this. And they also don't understand how to come out of it. And so what Baba says is, look, I'm God, and I am the ocean of everything. So you need energy? Take from me, because I have so much energy, enough for everyone in the world and then some. But you don't. You still take energy from each other. Why? Because you can see each other. I'm invisible. But you can understand me. Right? And so this is a study of Raj Yoga for being able to understand, first of all, that you're a soul and that you're indestructible. And all this is very clearly written in the Gita, very clearly written. And Baba also says that in the Gita, or the Gita itself, is the foundation of all the other scriptures of all the other religions. It's the only scripture which has this kind of information. But there's a problem. And the problem is the identity of God. So you are a soul, not a body. The mother and father of the soul must also be bodiless. And so he says, if you think that the speaker of the Gita is Krishna, you immediately get a picture of a person. And you see the young Krishna, or the Krishna, the guy in the war. And so you can't be soul conscious because you think of God in a bodily form. Or even in any religion, even for example, in Islam, they say Allah is God and Muhammad is his messenger. And it's easier for them to think about Muhammad than to think about Allah, because Allah is too mysterious. For the Christians, they say there is God, the Father of Christ is God. But they think about Christ because they have a picture of Jesus. And so they go there. And so spiritual practice and spiritual study is about God saying to us, okay, I am bodiless. You are also bodiless. You have a body, but your body is perishable. You are imperishable. So you have to think about that, because you haven't really thought about it deeply. And you need to think about it because it will help you to get strength. And it will help you to understand how to draw energy from God. And you need that because you don't have enough energy to manage the things of life which are challenging you. That's right, huh? And so meditation means really think about these things so that you get it. And the problem is many people, they don't get it. They stay or they return back to physical consciousness. And this is why we study this every day and we think about it every day. And gradually it sticks, it stays with you that I'm a soul, not a body. The body is perishable, but the soul can never die. Impossible. But when somebody dies, you cry. Why? Attachment. Otherwise, where did we come from? Another birth with other relatives in another place. But you forget. It doesn't mean that you stop existing. So we keep on passing through life after life after life. And now God is talking to us and saying, okay, now you got damaged by life. And so I have to repair you. So this is also like a repair place for the souls to get repaired, strengthened, made virtuous, cleaned, and brought back to the original condition. That is called salvation.
There are a few questions and reminders, and the question is, could you please discuss how does one become flower from thorns with power of yoga?
Well, a thorn means somebody who does something against somebody else. Mostly in this murli, he is talking about anger. So when somebody displeases you or takes something away or annoys you or whatever, you hit back and you hurt them. And when you hurt somebody, hurt their feelings, hurt their body, hurt their reputation, whatever it is, that's called acting like a thorn. And so he doesn't want us to do that, because if you do that, you create more karmic accounts. So that's not the idea here. The idea is to remove the karmic accounts. So therefore, you need power. And it's very often said that with yoga, you get power. And he talks about the 8 powers of yoga. So the 8 powers, one of the main ones is tolerance. So when someone annoys you, you have to say to yourself, okay, that's their part in the drama. It's predestined that they will behave like that, right? That's the way it is. And then it's up to you what you're going to do about it. So you have to decide what you're going to do about it. A lot of the time, when people do annoying things, it's actually very annoying, but quite trivial. They talk too loudly, or they banging on something, or whatever it is, but it's trivial. But if you don't have inner power, you react to it and you will do something which damages them, and it will put you into a karmic debt. So it's really not worth it. And on the other hand, what you could do is just be in your power and stay in your own stage of, I'm, a pure, peaceful, powerful, loveful, blissful being of light, and you're performing your part in drama. That's very interesting. But you don't have to do anything about it. Because what does a flower do? We got flowers around here. There's some back here. There's some over there. What do? They just sit there and look nice. And they give out a fragrance. So you can also do that too. You don't have to engage and get yourself into karmic account. But if people are, beautiful and nice, it helps the atmosphere. And when situation could go really bad and they just stay beautiful and fragrant, then that heat of the moment dies down and you can maintain a relatively harmonious atmosphere in the house, because otherwise it's easy for things to go wrong over small matters. But you need power for that.
Just on that lines, fragrance is important. Not just stay still, but like a flower, radiate the fragrance.
Radiate the fragrance. So that comes with your smile.
Presence, yeah.
It's your virtues. The virtues are always called flowers, and you are the master of perfume after all. So when you see a flower, what do? You put your nose towards it to see if it's got a fragrance, right? And if it does, you say, wow, this is good. But if it doesn't, you say, looks nice, but there's nothing there. So yeah, the virtues are the fragrance.
And especially in terms of the blessing, when Baba was talking about make others content, not going out of your way and pleasing people, but being your fragrant self, that makes them.
It will satisfy them, because why do people buy perfume for such enormous amounts of money? Because you like it when something smells good.
There's some nice questions here. The souls of other religions, how do they face their Dharmaraj? Are they punished against their own dharma?
Well, this idea of the time of reckoning is there in all the religions. And because the law of karma applies to anybody, whatever their religion is, or even if they're an atheist or whatever, it doesn't make any difference because you create a karmic debt. And when you reach to the end of the cycle, then all your outstanding karmic debts have to be finished. And so what we do is we try to finish them with the power of yoga and to neutralize our negative sanskaras so they're not operating anymore, and replace that with virtues. And a lot of religions also try to do that. But we have an advantage. We have more information, so that we're better off. And so when we have more information, it means we'll be held accountable to a higher degree. And so the other religions will be held accountable one for one. We will be held accountable one for 100,000. So if you want to come into this practice, be prepared for a different level of accountability. But still, everyone has to face the music. Yeah.
You're already in, there is no exit now.
Yes. That's
question.
the problem. Once you know you're a soul, you can't unknow it. Once you know you have to do the right thing, you can't unknow it.
So the next question is, if equality fundamentally does not exist, how do we process the direction to become Pap Saman?
Well, this is a very interesting question. First of all, you have to think of Bab Saman, meaning something like do as he does. I think that makes it quite practical and quite realistic. You see, if you say Bab Saman means you have to become equal to God, that's like, what? How do you do that? It's impossible. But you can, God will say, be nice to people. I'm nice to people. You also be nice to people. You can do that and become Bab Saman by doing what he does. And he was talking about that the other day. So that's very practical. Follow the Father, do what he does.
Could you please take up the bodiless stage meditation?
Well, when you meditate, practicing different stages.
Lead the commentary sometime.
Huh? Yeah, no, I'm not going to do a commentary because commentaries are entertainment. And that's not really quite as useful as explanation. So you have to really think about what does it mean to be bodiless. And in the murli today, he said bodiless means that you're not reactive with arrogance that makes you angry. And so a bodiless stage in that sense is to remain detached from the reactiveness to sense impressions. Because you see, if you're bodiless, you don't have eyes, ears, mouth, nose, and fingers. And so therefore you're just a soul. And when you're just a soul, you're just pure, peaceful, powerful, loveful, blissful, exuding that energy. But when you're in a body and you perceive reality through your sense perceptions, then your mind is filled with all these impulses and reactions to these impulses. And so bodiless is that you are really detached from the input, sensory input. And you have to practice that not in meditation, but while in the process of interacting with people, because that's where you get your tests.
So the question is around, do you have any recommendations around
The Gita?
good versions of, good
Well,
translation of?
I prefer one which is called, or one which is translated by a man called Winthrop Sargent. And you know, there is an opera by Philip Glass, which is called Satyagraha, which is about Gandhi's story. And they use the Sanskrit of the Gita, but they also use that particular translation. And the reason why this translation is, I think, useful is because it just tells you what it says. He doesn't tell you what it means. And when you translate the Gita, giving your interpretation of what it means, then that interpretation depends on you. And if you want the Gita without any comments, just the Gita, then that's a good one. That's the one that I like.
The next question is around, in Gita it is mentioned thought is soul and intellect is soul. Could you please elaborate on that?
What Baba says is the mind, the intellect, and the sanskaras are subtle organs of the soul. And so the soul is something different. The soul is an energy which has the capability of thinking. And when the soul is thinking, that's called thought. And when the soul is evaluating that and understanding the conscience, all this, that's called the intellect. And then the role that the soul has is really the sanskaras, because karma and sanskaras are intimately linked. And then there's your predestined part. So all of these are what the soul does, but not what the soul is. And so they're called faculties of the soul. And so you have to think about that. What are you? When the soul is in the soul world, the mind, intellect, and sanskaras are dormant. Only when you're in a body, then you start to perform. And in terms of technology, and we have this technology of artificial intelligence and all of that, the soul is like the programming, the potential, but you don't see what is in the program until it's displayed on your computer or your robot or something like this. And so it's very, very subtle to understand the self as a soul. And sometimes people think, okay, let's be silent. And so they try and control their speaking and making various noise and try and stop the mind and all of that. But it's unsuccessful because the nature of the soul is to think once you're in a body. And if you stop that, you're going to cause an explosion. Because when you hold back an energy and it's flowing and it's building, sooner or later it's going to be stronger than your ability to hold it back, and that will be an explosion. So I don't think that's really very helpful to just explode yourself. But what you need to do is to make sure that you produce thoughts that correspond with your essence. That means purity, peace, power, love, bliss. And also thoughts that are based in the knowledge. This is why he gives us the murli every day to listen to. And if you process these thoughts, it will bring you to contact with yourself and contact with God. And then you will arrive at your destination, which is, the best thing of all is I am me. And there you have a full stop at that point. No further, nothing else to say. I am me. He is him. And all of this is it. Okay, fair enough. Let's go. Om Shanti. And that's why Om Shanti is the first mantra and the last mantra. Because Om Shanti has so many meanings, you know. You go through everything and eventually you sit quiet. Okay, thank you very much. Have a nice day. Yeah. All right. So,
one comment. Sister Mary is remembering Alma Ben. Alma Ben, she used to bring flowers. She was mentioning that she used to remove all the thorns, the flowers before she used to bring to the center.
yes.
And her mantra was always, anytime you ask any trouble, she was evicted, she lost her sight, anytime you ask, she always says, how are you? I am content. That was
Nice.
her mantra.
Very nice. Yeah, she was a wonderful
Very
soul.
strong will and steady.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay, so let's conclude with a few moments with Baba Om Shanti.